Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, John Clark, and Tim Donner. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. We've all been ready for Crazy Town in the Middle East. President Joe Biden was asked recently what he would tell Iran if he would be so kind about a revenge attack on Israel. He turned to the television cameras with steely, resolute eyes and warned, "Don't." Well, Iran did. Iran attacked Israel with force, launching a reported 320 attack drones, cruise and ballistic missiles. So what happens now? Dare we hope for a diplomatic resolution between Israel and Iran, Dave?
Well, there may be a diplomatic solution available out there, but it should happen after Israel sends a message to Iran that you attack our sovereign territory and you can expect an extremely costly response. Israel must counterattack if there is any hope of preventing a massive missile drone attack in the future. It just must happen. And it will also increase Israel's cachet in any diplomatic solution. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, is there any evidence whatsoever that the Biden administration has the international cachet to achieve a diplomatic solution that puts Iran in its place and makes Israel safe from a direct attack, from Iran in the future? The Biden administration has been a failure in the Middle East by any measure.
Biden basically told the prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu, that the ironclad support we hear so much about wasn't really solid. Was that just a big lie, or is he trying to walk that fence?
Well, it's a very scary time with such language, and I think there's a naivete here, or else a deliberate effort to abandon Israel. This is a culture in the Arab culture that we may not understand, in which there's a ladder of escalation, and if Israel does not counter, then that would just be encouraging more attacks. So Israel has to counter. John Bolton said so, that this was a complete failure of this administration's deterrence efforts, and just saying don't doesn't work any better than it does on the street. Your word gets out if you're weak. So to say that he doesn't have Israel's back at this point, does that suggest not only that the U.S. would not involve itself in an attack on Iran, but that it would not defend Israel again if there's another attack? So John Bolton, as I say, came out in favor. Antony Blinken came out and saying that Israel should hold back. And the president of Iran said very strongly that if there's another attack, they will attack fiercely and aggressively. This is not an eye for an eye culture. And so really the president is leaving Israel out high and dry, whether or not that's his avowed intention. That is the impact of this potentially.
Where is support coming from for Iran in this whole mess, Andrew?
Well, Israel receives about, 3 to 4 billion a year baseline from the U.S. government. And of course, today it's more because of the billions of dollars the U.S. has been sending to Israel since the October 7th attack. But I think the real question is, where's Iran's financial support coming from? Where's all this money to buy, to build up its cachet of weapons? Now, there's one thing that a lot of people who talk about the politics of situations, that they neglect that the Iranian oil sector has been booming in the last couple of years under Biden. Production is around 3 million barrels a day. It's third in OPEC. Oil exports have been at a 5-year high. Its floating storage vessels have been depleted because they're shipping off that oil. Now, who's buying this oil from Iran? Well, a couple of European countries are, like Germany and Spain, for example. But the majority of Iran's oil revenues come from China. China has been the one who's been scooping up a lot of Iran's oil production. Now, many people question, but what about the sanctions? What about the trade restrictions? All these measures employed by the last two administrations, Trump and Biden. Well, as Liberty Nation has been reporting for the last few years, the de-dollarization campaign has played a big role in allowing China to buy Iranian oil and to allow the Iranian oil and gas sector to flourish, because a lot of these transactions are settled in Chinese yuan, not US dollar, which is huge. And when it comes to the payment systems, Iran has been tapping into the SIPs, which is the Chinese alternative to the SWIFT system. So overall, Iran has been able to fund these terrorist activities through its oil and gas sector. And of course, who can forget to mention the $6 billion that was unfrozen? And on top of that, the Biden administration issuing that 120-day waiver to allow Iraq to buy Iranian energy for the next few months.
So you're saying Joe Biden did it? I mean, okay. Well, where is China and Russia? Are they just, waiting to be called on the phone and say, hey, get in the game? I mean, they're the big players out there.
They're the ones that are joining with all of America's sworn enemies or adversaries because it's open season now on the U.S. because Joe Biden has demonstrated consistent weakness and inability to stick with a position. Now what he's done, he has managed to infuriate two heavily Democratic voting groups, Jews and Jew haters. Think about it. The Jews are not happy overall with his response because of his backtracking and willingness his willingness to draw a moral equivalence somehow between the October 7th attack on 1,700 innocent civilians and the fact of a war being started. And he's managed to backtrack on it so the Jewish community is not happy, and the people that hate Jews, and I call them Jew haters instead of anti-Israelis, because their goal is not just to wipe out Israel, but to wipe all Jews off the face of the earth. And both of these sides are entirely dissatisfied with Biden's actions. 33% only of the American people approve of his actions regarding Israel, and he's lost, or more precisely ceded, any semblance of control over this conflict because of his wavering, because neither side trusts him, because neither side sees him as anything but weak and easy to take advantage of.
Dave, geez, when does somebody else put boots on the ground? Is that imminent?
I don't think so. I think that you have a tremendous relucance on the part of the United States to do anything that looks as though it's intervening militarily precisely in Israel. And I just can't imagine that with the feckless attitude that the Biden administration has had toward the Middle East, that would be in their in their quiver of arrows to do that. The only way in which the United States might possibly be involved with boots on the ground as part of a peacekeeping group that would come in from the United Nations. But as we've seen in the past, that's been that kind of an effort has been virtually unsuccessful.
Where do we go from here, guys? I mean, round the horn. Where do we go? What's happening next? What's going to be the next?
I'll tell you what. If you were a person who was unfortunate enough to be trying to cross the Golden Gate Bridge earlier this week, you will have witnessed what Joe Biden has wrought. And this is his party. These are left-wing people who were supposed to be supportive of him, but now what they're doing is they're going to overwhelm the Democratic National Convention. So things can only get worse in the Middle East. We're not headed towards peace. We're headed towards further war. And they can only get worse for Joe Biden domestically on this issue because he's lost control, has no influence over either side, has infuriated everybody. And I don't know, guys, does anybody see any of this changing before November?
Well, oil markets, the way they're responding to the fallout of the aerial assault is that the oil prices have been easing because investors seem to think that the geopolitical tensions have eased somewhat, and there's not going to be a major escalation by the Israeli government. The White House keeps insisting, or keeps, I think it was John Kirby during the press briefing on Monday when he was saying, "Oh, we're encouraging Israel to have restraint in its response." And I think John Clark mentioned this. Iran said, hey, if there's a counterattack, be prepared for, a fire and fury response. So, but if there's an escalation, of course, oil prices will just dramatically climb, and which would be beneficial to Iran because then, their oil sector, of course, would benefit.
Well, I mean, honestly, Andrew, it would be beneficial to anybody who's running against Joe Biden. If there is, a $5 price tag at a pump in Attica, Indiana, no.
Don't worry, though.
I mean,
the administration says they're ready to release more oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So
which
White
is
House
already at its lowest level in like 50 years because he drained it before so that he could reduce oil prices.
I think there's an element here that I haven't heard much from the media, and that is if, in fact, Iran decides to respond to a counterstrike, you can anticipate that there will be more missiles than 310, and that they now know what Israel's air defense in depth is, and they know how it's layered. They know exactly at what level the Israelis will come up first. And so I think that when Israel, and hopefully soon, does have a counterstrike, that they take out air defense and they take out command and control on the part of Iran, because that's how this is going to unfold, I believe.
Well,
Sarah, I just wanted to say that there's a simple, old, common sense truism that applies to Joe Biden and the political peril of this situation for him. And that is, when you try to be all things to all people, you wind up being nothing to nobody.
Nobody. Yep. Well, Israel will likely take the Biden administration's counsel to take the win about as seriously as Iran took the president's don't. We'll let you know when we know at Liberty Nation. Thanks, panel. Well, that's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today. For free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.